Shana Tova. I'm Philip Hain, your current temple president. Most of you know me, but some of you may not. And if you don't, please introduce yourself at some point. One thing you may not know about me is what I do for a living. I work for a nonprofit organization that provides healthcare services to low-income people. My specific function is a fundraiser, asking people to donate to support our programs. And one thing you're not supposed to do is talk about yourself. And today, I will be breaking that rule, talking about myself, but there is a point to all this. This past March, I went to a seminar for incoming synagogue presidents, and they asked a question of all the attendees. Have you always felt a strong sense of Jewish identity from when you were young, or did you come into it later, or were you raised in another religion? The biggest surprise was that group number 3, those who were raised in another faith, was the largest. When I asked the board a few months ago which group they thought I selected, most said group number 1. That wasn't exactly correct. Those of you who were at the annual meeting in June heard me say that Temple Sinai is not about me. It's not about the board. It's about all of us and how we connect to each other. I also referred to the fact that I love movies and had a title in mind that would be, I guess, the framework of what I hope to do over the next couple years. It was Spike Lee's first major film called Do the Right Thing. I'm a native of Los Angeles, and our family belonged to Temple Israel of Hollywood, a very large Reform synagogue. I attended religious school and became a bar mitzvah and continued through confirmation. But we only went for high holidays, even though my mom was on the board. We never attended weekly Shabbat services. While preparing for my bar mitzvah, the prayers were only minimally familiar. It didn't help that I was in Cub Scouts and our pack meetings were on Friday night, which also made it difficult to watch the Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family. Remember, this was before DVRs and VCRs. As part of being in Scouts after Cub Scouts, I was a Boy Scout, and one of the awards that I worked towards was the Jewish Religious Award named Ner Tamid. My religious school experience was not fun. Many of my classmates attended public school together, so it felt like a clique that I didn't belong to. There were few people who went to my middle school, but I still didn't fit in. The confirmation program involved weekends at a camp in Malibu, and I dreaded them. It also didn't help that the rabbi was the stereotypical German Reform rabbi whose sermons felt more like lectures and didn't have any connection to the kids. Looking back, it wouldn't be an overstatement to describe it as painful. My parents were in a program called Jewish Marriage Encounter to strengthen their relationship, and we did something called Family Encounter when I was in my late teens. In my early 20s, I attended a program called Young Adult Encounter. Side note, that's where I met my wife. I joined a Jewish fraternity in college, which was a bit of a surprise to the friends who knew me well, and even to myself. I did it to meet people since I was commuting, and that felt like an extension of high school. It also helped that I knew 2 guys from my high school. Truth be told, I was slightly intoxicated when I accepted my bid. I lived in the fraternity house right off campus, held several offices, and eventually became president of the chapter. Was this a precursor to any current situation? One of my closest friends in the fraternity, still to this day, is Andy. Although born Jewish, with the very Jewish surname Kaplan, his knowledge and interest in our faith was minimal. Maybe because his dad had died when he was 9, and he was not raised with religion. 0%, I would say. He married a lovely woman who was not Jewish, and yet there was a spark of Judaism in him, because for some reason he decided to have an adult B'nai Mitzvah at age 50. Maybe it was the latent influence of attending a few of my family's Passover Seders. And then he also made sure that all 3 of his kids became B'nai Mitzvah. When he asked for advice, I told him, get his oldest son accustomed to attending Friday night services by connecting with a friend and doing whatever was needed to get the boys to attend. His oldest son is getting married next month, and history is repeating itself because the son's fiance is not Jewish, but Andy asked him if they've talked about how they plan to raise their kids religiously. Why did we join a temple? Years ago, Temple Sinai held meetings as part of a strategic, long-range plan, and someone used the term inertia. It just seemed like what we were supposed to do. But Susan and I were not even minimally active, and I was repeating the pattern of my youth by only attending high holiday services. I remember sneaking out the side door so I didn't have to face a rabbi who had a 1% chance of knowing my name. After a few years, I made a decision that being a member and paying dues and not coming here to participate was not really smart, either financially or spiritually. I dipped my toe in the proverbial water and participated in a program called Mitzvah Corps, which asked people to help on projects as needed. I came to one event where we sorted clothes and other items were donated for a rummage sale. I was fortunate to meet a wonderful congregant named Debbie Blake, who always gave so much of herself to our community. I began to meet other people. Jan Fried asked me to be part of Brotherhood, and that seemed like an easy way to get more acclimated. Fast forward, and obviously, much has changed in my relationship with Temple Sinai. Coming to services much more often, I feel uplifted when I enter the building. And now I'm thinking back to what Rabbi said about how to deepen our relationships with one another. When I was membership chair, I constantly heard from visitors about how friendly our community is and learned over time that is not the case everywhere. First-time visitors frequently told me they previously had visited other temples and were ignored. When I was at that seminar, which I mentioned earlier, I got to spend time with one of our former employees, Barak Melkin. He told me that he and his wife had a very difficult time finding a congregation in New Jersey to join because none had the warmth and special touch of Temple Sinai. He was trying to tell this to other seminar participants and just said, it's really hard to describe. A few years ago, I was talking to a member who told me about his daughter's 16th birthday party. They had limited space and could only invite a small group of friends. She easily decided the people she wanted to celebrate with were her Temple Sinai friends rather than those from regular school. It reminded me of 2 girls named Eva and Judy, who both attended Temple Bethel in Detroit, but went to different public schools. Eva lived in the part of town that was minimally Jewish, but Judy became her best friend, and she spent almost as much time at Judy's house as her own. Eva was my mother, and my siblings and I heard so many stories about Judy that we felt as though we knew her. I never had a chance to meet Judy, but I'm grateful for the friendship she and my mother formed at their temple and the impact she had on my mother. I love that our teenagers have an opportunity to be assistants in the religious school, allowing them to earn extra money or get volunteer service hours credit, but mostly being able to give back from what they learned here, and also to support the students who will be following in their footsteps. At the graduating seniors Shabbat last year, I was so impressed that the teens who were at the service knew about the college and summer plans of those who couldn't be there. They keep in touch. Okay, maybe it's through social media, but still, they are connected. Last night, we had a young man who was a member here probably for just about 3 or 4 years. His family no longer are members, but he came back. He keeps coming back. He told me he'll be back in December. That's what Temple Sinai is. We were also fortunate last night to be seen by our former custodian, Dianju Aguilar, who is not Jewish. He practices another faith, but he came to Temple Sinai last night to be with us. Our family has been part of Havarah for over 20 years. Again, history is repeating itself because my parents were in one. When Susan and I were getting married, we had to reserve 20 seats for the Havarah because these people were, in a sense, extended family. And you just heard Rabbi talk about how we are starting this on a small scale with affinity groups to begin a new way for us to connect and deepen our relationships. None of what takes place at Temple Sinai happens by accident, and that's where we need your help. That means in order to create innovative and interesting programming, a thriving religious school, and yes, deepen our connections to each other, Temple Sinai needs your support beyond our standard dues. I'm asking all of you to take a moment and think about what Temple Sinai means to you at an emotional level and all the wonderful possibilities that we can create. For those who are not aware, you can be part of Torah Circle by donating beyond your standard dues level. You received a pledge card in the holiday packet mailed to your home. You may have picked one up on your way in. If you didn't bring it with you or didn't pick one up at the check-in table, we have extras. So they are going to be on the tables with the affinity cards. We're doing it a little bit differently this year. So if you're staying for lunch, and please stay for lunch, you can, so this will be a change from different years. We're not going to have ushers going around the sanctuary. It'll also save you 5 minutes and get us into lunch quicker. You can fill out a pledge card during lunch, hand it to me, hand it to any board member you know after the service during lunch. It will give us a chance to personally express our gratitude. Thinking about my day job, organizations always have the hope that every person will contribute for the greater good of the community. How amazing would it be if everyone helped at any level that works for them and is comfortable for them, and we could announce in an upcoming message that 100% of Temple Sinai members made some kind of contribution this year. That would be the coolest thing, a mitzvah we could all celebrate. Thank you for allowing me to tell my story. Thank you for supporting Temple Sinai. I love that this place is the exact opposite of my experience growing up. Thank you for being part of our truly special community. That itself is one way you've already started to do the right thing.